Okay. HEYS Reviews Lives, episode number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Welcome to the party. Thank God you arrived. And you can't leave because the show is starting now. Here we are. Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well out there. If you're out there watching live, if you are catching this on the replay at some point in the future, be thankful. Be thankful for the magic of the internet and the amazing technology that we have access to, meaning that we can plug things in and broadcast out, get our voices and our messages to anyone, anywhere, everyone, everywhere, at all times. We can preserve what we want to say for future generations. We can get it on the record. We can pass important information and knowledge and wisdom down through the ages into the future, where hopefully it will benefit somebody. And that's what we aim to do here on HEYS Reviews Lives, and this channel in general. I'm trying to put together information that is useful and help people connect the dots to see the big picture of what is going on in the world, not get caught up in the divisive minutiae of everyday life, which is constantly broadcast to us via the boob tube and the interwebs and the social media ghettos and the Chinese spy technology and the billionaire funded and controlled mainstream media. No billionaires sponsoring me. I'm not sponsored by anybody other than my will and my desire and what I sort of feel is my calling to speak to people and to try and help people understand what the F is going on in the world, because it is hard work. It's a full-time job in and of itself. Just excuse me a minute while I clear my throat. Okay, we're back. Previous live streams, I've been having to lean away from the microphone to cough because I hadn't set up or figured out a way to just mute it and cough sort of smoothly, which I have done now. And so hopefully you didn't hear that when I just coughed. Hopefully that was properly muted and properly taken care of. Okay, so let's see. Things looking good. Streaming. The volume measurement bar is flashing green and yellow. Hopefully not red. Don't want to be damaging anybody's eardrums out there. Hopefully the sound of my voice on your eardrums is pleasant. I've been told recently that I have a voice for radio. And then the person who told me that immediately giggled, presumably because of the implication that if I have a voice for radio, then there's other parts of me which are also suitable for radio. But he was kind enough not to say that. Anyway, let's get to the show. So today, I've called it 5, 6, 7 hate. And what we're going to be looking at is a lot of stories about hate. What is hate? What is hate speech? What is free speech? What is freedom of speech? We're going to look at some articles about that are feeding into this, and I think are there to generate hate, even though they're not overtly doing that. You know, it's not like, hey, read this article, I'm going to tell you who to hate. But that's what they do. And in preparing for this episode, a really interesting thing happened. What I do is I gather headlines and then I kind of group them together into a topic to try and get a flow for the episode, so that it kind of has a beginning, middle, and end, and it sort of connects. So it's not just a lot of random stuff, because you get plenty of that anyway when you're scrolling through your Insta, TikTok, Facebook type places. And I came across a bunch of articles, and as I was reading them and highlighting them and figuring out what I wanted to say, and the picture emerged. And as I've been sort of reflecting recently, what I want to do on this show is to help people connect the dots so they can see the big picture. Because, you know, the big picture is one of these pieces of art. I can't remember what it's called, but they just do lots of tiny dots and they're separate. And when you're up close against it, all these dots, they don't touch. And they just seem to be disparate, unconnected blobs of color. And it's only when you step back and you keep stepping back and you get to a certain distance where suddenly the picture is revealed. But you got to be looking at it from a distance. You got to be looking at it. You can't be like with the image up against your face like this. You got to step back. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help people step back. Don't get emotionally manipulated. Don't be drawn into the arguments and the dialectics, which just means two sides. Don't be drawn into the red-blue team game. You can not support either the red or blue team. You can stand back and realize that they're actually two wings of the same bird, and that bird is a bird of prey, and it wants to eat you. So with that little intro spiel done, let's get into today's article. And I should say as well, I've got a bunch of articles. I've got a good resource for you that I'm going to share about halfway through the episode today. I've got a video as well that I'm going to share and we're going to listen to. It's quite a short one, but it's an interesting point. And lastly, we're going to round off with a full reading of an article from offguardian.co.uk, which I think perfectly encapsulates the message that I'm trying to put out there for this episode. So, without any further doings, let's get into it. So this is the first article we're looking at today. It's the Spectator, and this is by Lionel Shriver. And I don't always focus on the writers themselves. I can sometimes I kind of think, well, who cares? It's about the words and the message, isn't it? But in this case, I wanted to just note this is Lionel Shriver, because we're going to learn a little bit about her after we've looked at the article. But she's writing in the Spectator, and she's telling us that progressives appeal to base emotions. So what are the base emotions? Well, I think it's often known as the 3 or else the 4 Fs, which is fight, flight, F. You know, the other one, the one that rhymes with book. And food. So it's the basic things. It's the basic things we need to live, survive as biological beings, organisms, and the emotions that are attached to those, right? So it's going to be things like fear, things like hunger, thirst, all these base level motivators, and contrasted towards the higher level motivators, you know. So think about how do animals interact? Are they fearful? Are they aggressive? Are they competing? All these kind of things. So she's arguing. She's telling us that progressives, if you're a progressive, you're appealing to the base emotions, and the implication is that you're appealing to the animalistic side of humanity, and that's what that's the picture she's trying to paint. And she's put this picture here at the start, which is lots of Palestinian flags, and they're having some smoke grenades going off, it looks like. It's to do with the protests. So she's talking about public events, and she's saying, in public events, I've sometimes given an unexpectedly appreciative nod to the hard left. And I want to just linger on that hard left phrase a second, because we're going to see it a lot in today's episode. Young people naturally hope to revamp the creaky, hypocritical institutions they inherit, just as my generation did in the 1960s. This concession is calculated. Being charitable carves out space for me to rip this odious ideology to shreds thereafter. Great point. I highlighted it in green because this is one of the things that's done, right? Your better nature, your desire to see fairness in the world, to see happiness and health, to spread that, to bring more of that into the world, that can be weaponized. That can be used, that can be harnessed, and then basically what happens is they'll harness that energy and then just lead it into a dead end where it's completely ineffective, thus neutralizing it, and meaning that many good intentioned people have their efforts and their energies just neutered, and so they're totally ineffective. And it's a good way of maintaining the status quo and ensuring that no meaningful, real, actual change happens. So it's a very good point that she starts off with. She tells us a little bit about herself. I'm a novelist, and literary writers do deal in language and ideas. You should think so. But most of all, we deal in feelings, precious feelings. So never mind what they say or what they claim to believe. What emotions emanate from Hamas's useful idiots? Does this clamorous crowd seem happy? Are they enraptured by visions of a better world? Do its activists exude kindness, tenderness, and compassion? Are they visibly bursting with love for their fellow man? Do we see the gleam of a radiant future glinting in their puppy-wide eyes? You can tell she's a novelist, right? So she's asking these rhetorical questions to try and push the idea that everyone who's out on the streets protesting what's going on in occupied Palestine are useful idiots, and the emotions, the feelings that are driving them, that are motivating them are, and she lists them here, free-floating fury, hatred, vengefulness, resentment, mercilessness, aggressiveness, cynicism, if not nihilism, sadism. All these emotions are dark. This is a movement without humor and without joy. It is an anti-everything and pro-zilch. No wonder it's in league with Hamas. It's anti-life. But she doesn't offer any. She's not interviewing these people. She's not talking to them. She's not giving their opinions space in this column. Right? She's just making all these claims and not backing them up. It's just her opinion. It's just what she, I think, is being paid to say. But let's continue. In recent appearance, I submitted guiltily that my boomer generation may have originated identity politics. And so she was kind of forced into a corner. Wasn't it you guys who came up with identity politics? And she says, yeah. But, she says, yes, we did come up with this, but We had fun. We had great music. We took drugs to further exoticize the exhilaration of being alive. Yes, we went to protest. Yes, we were intoxicated by self-righteousness, fancying ourselves mavericks who were also conformists in uniforms of beads and bell-bottoms. We said lots of stupid stuff. I declared at dinner at 14 that the entire US Defense Department should be eliminated, and even my peacenik parents chorused, "Well, I don't know about that." It was a time of farcical foolishness and unfeasible idealism mixed with the well-founded fear that you or your brother would land in Vietnam, and genuine grief over the assassinations of MLK and RFK. Yet the largely unserious revolution of the 60s was buoyant, exuberant, upbeat. The lingo was goofy but ebullient, groovy, far out, suck it to me, baby, which sure beats rape culture and heteronormativity. Whatever our vague intention to transform the future, we were bent on having a good time in the present. Okay. So she's saying, yes, they did the same thing when they were young, but they were taking drugs and they were having fun and their music was better, so it was all good. This is just a stunningly ridiculous argument. And I mean, if you don't know, the 1960s was a manufactured cultural revolution. There's plenty of work on this. I was listening to a podcast yesterday talking about this. Parallel Mike had a guest on, I can't remember his name, doing deep dives into the 1960s. They called it the underground back then. But what happened was the energy that was rising up and driving people to get together to say, we don't want to go to war. We want to get rid of war. This is not serving anyone. You're murdering. You're leading our young men and into slaughter, and you're slaughtering people we don't have a problem with over there in foreign lands. That the energy of that movement was, as I said, with the kindness and the compassion and the empathy earlier at the start of this article, it was harnessed. It was led into a dead end. It was neutered. It was they were given free sex and drugs and groovy music. And so instead of organizing and bringing about meaningful change by winning the hearts and minds of people over to their side, the whole movement was just hamstrung, and they just were having orgies and taking LSD and listening to Jimi Hendrix and the Doors. And, just as another side point about the Doors, Jim Morrison, his father was a bigwig in the U.S. Navy and was in a position of authority and control during the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which later was revealed and admitted to be a false flag event. So what happened in the 60s, a lot of these musical acts, which appeared out in one place, it's called Laurel Canyon, they all came out of this one place, and they all have links to elite bloodlines, to military families, to political families, right? That's well-established fact, but it is not well communicated, it's not well known, but it is well established beyond a shadow of a doubt. So her cultural revolution activities when she was young, what she's admitting to there is not that, we did it better and we were good at it. She's just admitting that she was part of a psychological operation which was rendered useless and ineffective. And she's kind of arguing that that's a better thing than what's going on. And what I thought was interesting is how she chucked in, what we did back then, it sure beats rape culture and heteronormativity. So why would you put those two things together, right? Heteronormativity, this is the preference that men and women should pair bond in monogamous long-term relationships in order to have children, which anyone will tell you and has to admit that children are the future of a nation or a culture or of civilization, more broadly, or the species, if you really want to take it up to the highest level. But without men and women getting together and committing to each other to have children and to look after them and raise them properly, then everything ends. Everything goes south quick. And that's what we're facing. I'm going to do another show on that, actually, but that's not for today. But this collapse of populations and this problematic lack of what I just described, you know, it is a real problem. But I like the way she just chucks rape culture in there and sort of implies that heteronormativity and rape culture go hand in hand, and they're like bed buddies, bedfellows. That did make me giggle. So she finishes on this latest iteration of Elvis Costello's Peace, Love, and Understanding is bleak. It's a hostile, vicious, dismal, and destructive gestalt with no vision of some resplendent new world that will rise from the ashes. Relishing the beheading of babies fits right in. Right? So you can see the picture she's painting. It's very transparent. It's very low IQ, low resolution. It's a hit piece. I have to say this is a hit piece. So who is Lionel Shriver? I wanted to know after reading this. Like, you know, it's a good bit of writing. You know, I could dramatize it, and I could kind of put some emotion and feeling into the words she was saying, because she's using emotive words, and it's quite funny that she's saying that it's the progressive that appeal to base emotions in the title, but actually she's doing it here in her article. Hatred, vengefulness, merciless sadism, beheading of babies, rape culture. Ooh. All those, all those things are terrible. Yeah, but is it really the people on the streets protesting in support of the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people? Is it them? Anyway, who is Lionel Shriver? What is her background? So I did a quick look into her Wikipedia page, and I noticed that she's a novelist, as she said, and she wrote a book called We Need to Talk About Kevin, which has been made into a film, which I have watched. And it's one of those, my wife and I, we love to watch our sort of psychological films. We like to see people going through the ringer. Not that we like to see it, but it to give an insight into, how humanity can be manipulated psychologically, because that's what's going on a mass scale to everyone everywhere. And it's psychological control, manipulation. It's the study of human psychology. It's the weaponization of that knowledge against us to make us feel, think, and act in certain specific ways, which serve the people who are doing this, and don't serve us. But she's written this novel. The novel was turned into a film in 2011. It's a psychological thriller drama. And what goes on in this novel? Well, it's about a mum called Eva. So Eve. It's kind of biblical. And she's in the film, she's living alone, and her house is run down, and she's got a boring job, and she's reflecting on the past. And at this present time, she's visiting her son Kevin, who's in a prison. And she goes back over her life and what happened and what brought her to this place. And the plot, and the spoiler alert, obviously, if you haven't figured that out already, I wouldn't recommend going out to watch this film. I do, like these days, just as a side note, I actually read a lot more plots on Wikipedia than I do watch films, because you can get what the message is in a fraction of the time without having to submit your mind to the relentless satanic programming, basically. That's another topic for another video, though. So she's a reluctant mother. This book is about a reluctant mother whose son is detached and difficult from childhood and appears to loathe and deliberately antagonize her. And she struggles to bond with her son. Okay. And one day, she gets so frustrated with him, she throws him against the wall and breaks his arm. So she's a good mother, let's say. And then he gets older, and the problem is that the son is, he's a golden child to the father, but he's an evil, manipulative POS to his mother, and so his father kind of dismisses his wife's protestations that he's evil, he's bad, there's something wrong with him, we need to get him help. And the dad's like, nah, shut up, you crazy woman. And so as he gets older, he puts his younger sister's guinea pig down the garbage disposal, and then he allows his younger sister to be blinded in one eye by being exposed to some harsh chemicals, kitchen cleaning chemicals. And then 3 days before his 16th birthday, he traps a bunch of students in his school, and he kills them all with bow and arrows. And then his mum gets home to find out that he's also killed his dad and his younger sister. And so that's why at the start of the film, he's in prison and she's visiting him and her life's terrible. And then it ends. And we never find out why he did it. There's never a motive revealed. He is just evil from birth. But so this is the kind of stuff that our friend Lionel Shriver's putting out there. You know, it's about a terrible parents, because the husband doesn't listen to the wife and dismisses everything she's saying, and they don't work together and communicate. And I cannot even remember how many films I've seen where the father, the husband, the male role model, the lead male in the house, is portrayed as the kind of guy who just dismisses everything his wife's trying to tell him. Maybe she's warning him about a ghost, or maybe she is warning him about one of his friends, or I don't know. You know, a lot of the times the male, the male of the household is portrayed as kind of incompetent or skeptical or unable to deal with threat. You know, so this is a common trope in films these days, and here it's the same thing. In fact, the actor that plays the father in this film is actually a comedic actor. John C. Reilly. He's usually in comedy films, but this is a serious role for him. So this whole film is about family dysfunction. It is about parents not bonding with children. It's about young white men being murderous, being homicidal, being satanic in the sense that they are psychopathic. It's about the mutilation of young girls. And then is about this is the way it is. Okay, that's the picture she's painting. So if she's painting that picture in her novels, I don't think we need to put too much stock in the picture that she's painting here over in her article on the Spectator. So that's Lionel Shriver, and I don't think I will be racing to read more of her stuff in the future, but you never know. All right, so moving on. We've got a Mail Online article. Matt Goodwin. Okay, so before we get into this, let me just preface this. These next three articles I read, I grabbed the headlines and then I went through them, and then these are the three articles where the picture started to emerge, and it was unplanned. And I was kind of like, whoa, when I saw what was happening, because these are all from the last week. And actually these articles, what I found out, they're all published on the same day. And that will become relevant as we go forward, but let's just go back to it quickly. So this is a Mail Online article, and we have Matt Goodwin, and he's saying the woke left and extreme Islamism have joined forces to try to reshape society around values that are deeply divisive and un-British. And this was published on the 19th of September, 2023. So he is talking about the sacking of the Home Secretary Suella Braverman recently. She published her resignation letter, which was read by 37 million people. And in it, she blasted Prime Minister Rishi Sunak for having failed to deliver on his promise to the British people to lower immigration and stop the cross-channel boats. Absolutely true. The Conservative Party, they got in on the promise that they would sort out illegal immigration and they would be a bit tighter and a bit stricter. And they haven't. They've done the opposite. They've encouraged it, they've rewarded it, and they've allowed more of it to happen. This isn't a problem unless you live in a place which has now been completely transformed. And you grew up with a certain culture around you and a certain group of people that you identified with, which looked like you, which lived life the way you did, which had the same sort of values and traditions and inherited the same kind of history as you. And suddenly that's transformed to a completely different culture, a completely different way of life, a completely different group of people who don't look like you whatsoever. And there's plenty of places like this. Not saying it's bad or good. I'm not saying anyone is to blame other than people like the Conservative Party, and let's be real about it. It's the political class. It's both teams, red-blue team. They've allowed it to happen, and it's been an agenda that has been in the works for a long time. And I'm reading a book on it at the minute, but I've left it upstairs next to my bed, so I can't show you that, unfortunately. So she's actually on the mark with this. This has been going on for a long time, and people are really unhappy about it because they've watched their communities transform. and many people feel that this transformation has been done against their best interests and against without consultation of them and their feelings. And you've got to sympathize with them for that. It's a terrible thing to see happen to the place where you grow up and you probably have a lot of emotional connection to and a lot of love for. So in the article, and again, some more pictures of people waving Palestinian flags, ceasefire now. So despite most of them being absolutely convinced that our borders are out of control, an assortment of activist lawyers, pressure groups, and unelected judges cheered on by the radical woke left blocked the only thing that might deter people against entering the country illegally. With Braverman gone, no frontline politician is left to voice the concerns of the vast majority of voters on issues such as immigration, multiculturalism, and the breakdown of our borders. Nor is there anyone who will take on the two big threats. So what are the two big threats? The first one, some of my highlighting has disappeared. I definitely highlighted the first when I went through this. The first was on show again yesterday in the 100 or so rallies held across the country as part of the Palestinian Day of Action, and it is antisemitism and support for Hamas. Okay, these marches represent the creeping and insidious spread of radical Islamism. So it's a similar tone to the Lionel Shriver article that we looked at already. All these people here, especially this one who has it's like a gas mask on, but she's wearing a gas mask. She's carrying a sign that says ceasefire now. She is a radical Islamist anti-Semite who supports Hamas because she wants people to stop shooting at each other and killing each other. Okay. But that's the number one threat that's undermining our shared identity, history, values, and culture. It's hardcore adherents who are taking to the streets every weekend, spout their hatred not only of Jews in Israel but of Western values and our way of life. And here you can see, I mean, this guy here in the middle of this picture must be extremely dangerous. Look at all those police. That's like 100 to 1. I want to know who this guy is and what he did to warrant that kind of turnout. He probably offended someone on Facebook. That's my guess. Appeal to emotion. Is this what our ancestors, whose memory we solemnly observed last weekend, fought for? To see elected representatives and British Jews, much like their ancestors in Nazi Germany, scared to leave their homes, go to school, or show their faith. How has it come to this? And so he's blaming radical Islam for this. Radical Islamism is, in this guy's estimation, very problematic. It undermines Western values, and it is in alignment with the left, the woke left, who we talked about in my last stream. The second big threat, right on cue, is the rise of a radical woke left whose supporters have joined marches in the full knowledge that elements within them are endorsing terrorism and anti-Semitism. Now, this full knowledge that elements within them comment, I have to just pause on and talk about a minute. Back when lockdowns were occurring, I joined marches and protests against them because it was very clear to me quite quickly, soon after they began, that they were unscientific and that they didn't help, and they weren't proven to do anything other than scare the bejesus out of people and really make people panic and really make people fearful and stressed. And guess what is the worst thing you can do for someone's immune system is to put them in a chronic state of fear and stress and panic and paranoia. So it was very obvious to me from, a few months into it that these lockdowns didn't make sense, and they weren't being done for to protect people and to make people healthy. They were achieving the exact opposite. And we live in upside down, back to front, opposite world, as I talked about again on my last stream as well. But when I was attending those some of those marches, I had a guy on Facebook, which I no longer use, but back then I did. And he was telling me that all these people who are marching, they're all right-wing Nazis. Look, there's a flag. One person was carrying a flag, and it's a right-wing Nazi flag. Therefore, you shouldn't go on this march because there are elements within that endorse right-wing Nazism. So the same thing was done then. And all right, maybe there was somebody in there who was carrying a Nazi flag. Maybe there is somebody in here who is endorsing terrorism and anti-Semitism. It's a march. It's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. There's going to be some bad eggs in there. I mean, you walk into a pub or a cafe that is packed, which is harder and harder to find these days. But you walk into any room full of people, get a decent-sized group of people together, there's going to be some knobheads in there, as we say in England. You know, there's going to be some idiots, some morons, some bigoted, racist fools. That's just going to happen. So what's the point? Don't march, never get together in groups, never try and form communities, never try and organize around a purpose or a movement or a set of values. It's stupid, right? Anyway, I'm really taking too much time going through these, so we'll try and pick up the pace a bit. This was best symbolized by former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, who refused more than a dozen times during a TV interview to call Hamas what it is, a terrorist group. As in America, the woke left is reshaping society around an utterly divisive and un-British worldview. Okay, the woke left argues that our history, identity, and culture are institutionally racist. Correct. And a source of shame and embarrassment. They do argue this, and it is nonsense and shouldn't be listened to. So he's right here. They say that it should all be revised, if not fully deconstructed, or in other words, overthrown. That is correct. There is an element of the woke left that push this. They push it in our schools. They push it to young people, particularly. And I covered that in my last live stream. So that's true. That is a real thing that's going on. European people are being targeted. The young people are being targeted, and they're being told that you should be ashamed. You're inherently racist, and to have children is the worst thing you can possibly do for the environment. And you should be fearful and scared and stay indoors, play computer games, eat soy, and watch pornography, and spank yourself silly. And don't bother trying to get married and settle down and have children and contribute society into a meaningful, productive, moral way. The message is stay at home, play computer games, eat antidepressants, and order fast food to your house. And that's a life. It's not a life. That's shit. So I'm going to skip through the rest of this and not dwell on too much of it, but What he's saying here is the key thing to look at here is that the woke left, which is a very real element, is aligning and connecting and joining with Islamism, and they're forming some sort of mega transformer, and they're turning into this kind of threat, which is going to upend Western values and Western culture, and you can see we've now faced a toxic erosion of the sense of shared identity, values, culture, and history we have in Britain. All right, let's go on to the next article. This is Spiked, and what do we have here? The sinister rise of the Islamo left. How progressives became the allies of Islamist reactions. When was this published? Oh, this was published on the 19th of November. Hold on a sec. When was this published? It was also published on the 19th of November. Interesting. Is Hamas a terrorist group? This was the question posed to Jeremy Corbyn, and he wouldn't answer it on TV. He was being invited to condemn, and that's the word going around. Do you condemn a group that had raped, tortured, and slaughtered hundreds upon hundreds of Israelis just over a month ago? But he couldn't do it. So, same talking point. Jeremy Corbyn, he wouldn't condemn Hamas, and he was asked over and over again, and he dodged the question. He preferred instead to witter on about needing to start a process that leads to a ceasefire. Oh, wittering about preventing people from murdering each other. Witter. Put your wittering away. It's so transparent when you see it. This goes on to talk about Islamist groups like Hamas are at the vanguard of the global resistance to the West, and that Israel and its Western allies are inherently evil. So that's the message that they accuse Corbyn of pushing. And that's what needs to be interrogated here, according to this writer. The broader leftist milieu that enabled Corbyn's performance is a milieu that now cleaves so closely to Islamism that it actually sees its regressive, violent antipathy to modernity as progressive. I don't know what they mean by modernity in this instance. We are, do they mean smartphones? Do they mean technology? Do they want to get rid of the internet? Do they want to get rid of fast food, Amazon? Do they want to get rid of, central heating, cars? What are they talking about? What is modernity? I don't get it. It's just they're throwing something out there, and they're trying to appeal to the conservatives. They're trying to appeal to people who like traditions and like culture and think that there's certain things about the past that were better. And I know many young people, people don't like to hear that at all. They think everything in the past was terrible. People were idiots. Things are way better right now. Everything about the modern day is way better right now. That's not true. It's absolutely not true. The roots of this moral and political degeneration run deep. Most of the blame lies with the left's abandonment of class politics in favor of identity politics. So we need to bring back class politics. But what you can see is really a very similar narrative being constructed as this previous article. It is the same thing. The incipient Muslim identity politics was given a shot in the arm in the Iranian Revolution and the Salman Rushdie affair. Islamism, the most radical form of Muslim identity politics. Oh, excuse me. That's my phone. How embarrassing. Excuse me a second. I'm actually going to have to answer this call live on air. Boo. She's not even picking up. Unbelievable. Oh, here it is. Right, hang on a sec. I'm going to mute myself.
As your mum give you instructions.
Yeah, I know where we're going. We're going to come and pick you up.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done, love. So I'll just come straight and we'll be hanging around at the reception area.
Yeah.
Watching out for you. All right?
Yeah, we'll be there. So definitely have a coffee and get some breakfast. And you're out by 11, right? We'll be there around that time to pick you up, Granny.
Oh, that's great. Because maybe you could go up and bring nice suitcase down.
I'm sure I can manage that. Yeah, I had a good sleep last night. I'm feeling strong today, so leave them up there, and I'll bring them down for you. No worries.
All right. I look forward to seeing you.
All right, I love you, Granny.
Right.
See you soon.
Safe journey. Love you too. Bye now.
Bye. All right. I don't know if you guys could hear that properly, but that was me talking to my granny. She's giving me a ring. I'm going to go and pick her up later. So I'm going to have to hurry this show on. Oh my God, 43 minutes. Right. So this is another article that's painting the same picture as the last one. Islamism can approximate fascism in its opposition to modernity. And again, what is modernity? And so a bit more history in this article. Stop the War movement of the 2000s. And so he's painting, this writer, I keep saying he, I don't even know if it's he. This writer is painting a more detailed picture than the last one, giving us some history and giving us a more robust narrative in this argument. You know, philosopher and polemicist Pierre-André Taguieff, this Prophet and the Proletariat was an important publication. And so Corbyn again, and some Hamas members back before it was, public enemy number one. The British government were bringing them over and they attempted to deport them, but they couldn't. All that matters is that these Islamists are opposed to the West, which supposedly makes them the good guys. I'm not sure if that's true or where that comes from, but that's the picture that he's painting. And we're seeing the fruit of the left's decadent embrace of Islamism. So again, it's the same thing. It's the combination of Hamas and of Islamism and the woke radical left, and it was published on the 19th of November. What's next? Let's have a look. The next article we got. TikTok risks turning a whole generation into anti-Semites. Oh, finally, a change of pace. A different story, something else to talk about. 19th of November. My Jewish daughter is being tortured by TikTok. Firstly, this is your fault, right? If you're letting her use TikTok, if you're a father, you're supposed to protect her, Jake Wallace Simons, from garbage, nonsense, mind-rotting apps like TikTok. It's your responsibility as a father, as a parent, to make sure she's not exposed to that trash. So it's on you. My Jewish daughter is being tortured by an app that I let her use and on a device that I bought for her. Who'd have thought that dropping our children into the grip of a Chinese-owned platform was a bad idea? Precisely. In a fiery Zoom call with TikTok execs this week, the actor Sacha Baron Cohen accused it of creating the biggest anti-Semitic movement since the Nazis. Right. Hitler was right. I hope you end up like Anne Frank. This is the kind of comments that are being thrown about and published on TikTok. So, apparently, I don't use it because I know what it is all about and I know where it comes from. And I'm educated on that kind of thing. You could be too. In isolation, these could be dismissed as schoolyard insults. En masse, they are toxic. So they are a toxic social movement. So they're arguing that this app is snowballing into a movement. Before our eyes, a generation of young people is augmenting its luxury beliefs with support of jihadism. The old-fashioned anti-imperialism of the likes of Jeremy Corbyn has become the guiding principle in a generation radicalized by social media. And there it is. So we got Black Lives Matter, which you couldn't think of a better example of the woke left. Black Lives Matter combining with Hamas, and this is an achievement the Islamic State could only dream of, facilitated by anti-Semitism. So it is the same narrative again, pushed on the same day that the other two articles we looked at published the same narrative in their on their websites. So you see the picture here. You see what I was astounded and astonished to realize when I was going through these articles is that this is I stumbled on a prime example. You've got the Telegraph, you've got the website Spiked, and you've got the Mail Online, and they have all pushed on the same day articles which explain the same, which paint the same picture and push the same narrative. That narrative being that this combination between the Islamic fundamentalists, the extremists, and the woke left extremists, they're coming together and they're forming a super bot. And it's all because they're anti-Semites, and it's all because they hate modernity. That is their motivation. It's hate, as Lionel Shriver was telling us. It's hate, and they're not taking enough drugs, and they're not making enough decent music, and they're not enjoying themselves enough, and it's just a humorless, evil, anti-modernity, anti-Semitic movement which threatens everything. Life as we know it could all be unraveling very soon. My browser is not playing and responding to the things I'm asking it to do, which is kind of frustrating. I don't know why is that. I wonder if it's just this one page. Let's go to the next one. We might have to do things slightly differently. Oh no, we're good. It's just that one page. Okay, let me just flash this one up for you. So there's another article that I wanted to share that I can't get to work right now. Let's see if I can do it like this. Oh no, it's disappeared. Let's reload it. If that doesn't work, then maybe they've unpublished it. Maybe it's been memory hold. But the article was from a Reuters.com website, the technology section, and the headline was, Nepal government decides to ban China's TikTok. And it was just a bit of good news, because the last article was all about how TikTok is turning our children into Islamist antisemites. And this one, Nepal has done the adult thing, unlike that author in the other article, who they're taking control, and they're saying, look, get rid of this thing. It's degrading society. It's turning people into morons. It's making people unable to think clearly, unable to stand back and unemotionally analyze evidence and come to informed opinions and conclusions about things for themselves. It is completely eroding that. Thanks to TikTok, most young people have an attention span that is in the toilet and unworkable and unmaintainable over the long term. It means they can't read a book. So I'm always saying, read books, have a look at books. They can't. They can't even get to the end of a page without thinking, this is boring. I want to look at a cat doing something funny. And cats are funny. But I wanted to address the theme that I just pulled out of those previous articles, to this idea that everyone who is protesting on the street, they hate modernity and they're anti-Semites. Could there possibly be anything else that is causing them to get out on the street and organize in that way? And yeah, I think there could be. So I went onto Wikipedia and I thought, let's have a look, because this conflict that's going on, it's got a history, and the history goes back. These people have been beating the crap out of each other for a long time. So there's a lot more history than just one group spontaneously attacked another group with no provocation and out of the blue, randomly on October the 7th. Because that's the narrative. The one group attacked the other group on October the 7th, and everything since has been self-defense, and they have a right to self-defense. And everyone who's out on the street just wants to see one of the groups wiped off the face of the earth, and that group is not even Semitic, even though the people are being called anti-Semitic. So let's have a look at this graph. This is from the Wikipedia page. And it's telling us how many Israelis have been killed in the occupied Palestinian territory. Just linger on that phrase, occupied Palestinian territory, and Israel in the context of the occupation and conflict. We go back to 2008 and we go all the way up to 2023, and look at these numbers. They're horrific. They are really bad. 33, 88, 11. Every life lost is a tragedy. Every life lost unnecessarily in a conflict is a tragedy, and it's extremely sad. And it weighs down on my heart to see these numbers. 1 second, I think I'm going to sneeze now. Now I'm going to have to make another waiting sign that says I sneeze. So we've got numbers here, and there's a grand total of 308, and you can see it year by year over the last, what would that be? Sort of 15 years. And then let's go over here to, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to the next tab. This is 2008 to 2003. So it's the same time frame. And this is Palestinians killed in the occupied Palestinian territory and Israel in the context of the occupation and conflict. And we can look at the numbers here. And these numbers are sad and heartbreaking. 899, 260, 1,066, 300, 2,329, 6,407 Palestinians killed from 2008 up to September 2023. So this doesn't even include the stuff that's been happening since October the 7th, right? But look at the two numbers here, the differences. 308, 6,407. So, do you think this could have something to do with the people who are out there marching in the street? Or is it just that they hate modernity and they're anti-Semitic? What do you think? I don't know. I know what I think. Casualties of the current thing, 2023 Israel Hamas war. So on the 7th of October, more than 1,200 Israelis, foreign nationals, mostly civilians, were killed. Absolutely tragic, heartbreaking, and sad. Just weighs down on my heart to talk about this stuff. as of the 21st of November, over 14,500 Palestinians, the majority of whom were women and children in the Gaza Strip, have been killed. Right, so that's Wikipedia. There's a big difference there. You've gone 1,200 tragic, horrible, horrific loss of life, and in return for that, you've got 14,500 tragic, horrific loss of life. So the picture is not as Lionel Shriver and her cronies all publishing the same narrative on the same day across the internet would have you believe, right? There's history to it. There's more going on, and one side is suffering disproportionately more than casualties and deaths than the other side. I mean, that is admitted by Wikipedia. If you don't believe Wikipedia, I wouldn't blame you because it's a pretty unreliable source. But my point is that you can see how they're driving a divide. Oh my goodness, I've been on the wrong thing this whole time. Oh, if you didn't see the graphs I was looking at earlier because I was doing things badly. There they are. I'm going to link all this under the video anyway, just to see my lovely face instead. So these are the graphs with the numbers for the Israelis killed in the last 15 years. This is the Palestinians killed in the last 15 years. And this is the Wikipedia page saying over 14,500 majority women and children have been killed as of the 21st November in the current thing. So the picture is more nuanced and there's more history there. And it's not... Do you think that these facts could be part of the reason why those people are out there on those streets calling for a ceasefire, as the picture showed us that we looked at on that article? Or are these people writing these articles correct and everyone out there is just a bunch of modernity-hating Islamist anti-Semites? What do you think? Maybe both are true. Do you think both can be true? Can there be a contradiction like this in reality? Maybe one group is fed one set of information and the other group is fed another group of information in order to divide and conquer, in order to create friction, in order to have a bunch of people sitting at home going, these people protesting in the streets, they hate everything they've got. They hate British values. They're undermining modernity and they want to bring everything down. And they want to bring me down and my lifestyle and the things I stand for and the things my ancestors fought for. They hate us and they are the enemy. Some people are standing there thinking that, and the other bunch of people are going, it's tragic and horrific what's happening. We need to get out on the street and make our voices heard. We need to show our government not to support this indiscriminate murder of women and children in Palestine. 14,500 of them, according to Wikipedia. So you got two separate narratives on the go that cannot be reconciled, you know? But each group is being fed different propaganda. And I just stumbled upon the narrative that's being fed into this group of people are all anti-Semite group, right? I hope I'm explaining this clearly. It's a hard thing to explain, but I think I'm painting a pretty good picture and a good case for what I'm trying to say. Moving on. All right, so I'll just mute this and just play a little bit. So this is something I wanted to bring to your attention. This is on YouTube, and it is the Truth Over Comfort channel. And the fellow that runs this channel, he's here in the UK, and he's a fellow Autonomy graduate like me. And he interviews some of the best analysts and some of the greatest minds and thinkers who are looking at current events and who are not funded by Bill Gates and are not party to the left group or the right group, the Pepsi group, the Coca-Cola group, the red group, the blue group. They are just standing back and looking at the big picture and recognizing that there is history here and there is nuance here and that there is it is not simplistic, right? And it takes an hour-long interview to draw out some of these facts, to get some of this information on the table, right? You want to understand what's going on. You can't just read a headline and scroll through a couple of articles. You got to invest some time into people who know what they're talking about. If you don't have an hour, then you can go on the settings down here. You can hit the playback speed and you can put it at 1.5, right? And that'll get you through the video much quicker and you'll get the information and surprisingly still totally fine to listen to. So I wanted to give a shout out to Truth Over Comfort. I'm going to link the channel underneath this video. But you can see some of the people he's had on. James Corbett is a notable returning guest to the show. But he is just pumping out videos. He's talking about Oppenheimer. He's talking about Taiwan. He's talking about the neocon influence, Ukraine. So if you are into geopolitics, if you are into understanding war and the military-industrial complex, I think you got to come over here, and I think you've got to check out this stuff. And there's also, to go along with that, a website. And I wanted to highlight the website as well, because this is a Truth Over Comfort website. And there's some really useful stuff here as well. And there's conspiracies and misconceptions I wanted to talk a little bit about in this show. But there's cheat sheets where you get facts and quotes of the people and the main players and those who are kind of conspiring and working to bring about things. You've got quotes, you've got media videos and interviews, and you've got articles. So there's plenty to go at and get stuck into. But I really like this page, Conspiracies and Misconceptions. It's a short page. It's a very short essay, but it's really important stuff. So he's saying the term conspiracy and conspiracy theory has become very misunderstood in recent years, so I hope this page can shed light on the many misconceptions of this subject, as conspiracies hold an important part in our previous, current, and future history. The term is floated around by different groups and often wrongly. So what is it? What is a conspiracy? All it is two or more people planning to commit a crime or do something immoral, evil in the future. It's that simple. The term conspiracy theorist in recent years has become a weaponized term in order to shut down conversation, label certain groups, and avoid addressing what they're actually saying. That is absolutely on the money, 100% factually correct. And if I could get everyone to realize that, that would be a wonderful thing. It's a weaponized term to get you to switch off and not look at the evidence being presented. Oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. It's just a theory. It's theory. It's not theory, right? Are you saying that there are no conspiracies? Well, he answers that for us. There are many examples of mainstream history of conspiracies, such as assassination of Franz Ferdinand before World War I, assassination of President Lincoln, gunpowder plot of Guy Fawkes, Operation Himmler, and the Nazi false flag project to give provocation to invade Poland. Also, 9/11. Yes, even if you believe the official version, it is a conspiracy. Multiple terrorists conspired to blow up the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. I tend to stick to proven conspiracies, not because I don't find certain conspiracy theories interesting, but because there are so many proven ones that I don't need to spend my valuable time on the ones I can't prove. Absolutely on the money, really well said. I would love people to go and support Truth Over Comfort, whether that is on the YouTube or on the website. They are both very great sources of information and knowledge that will help you actually understand what is going on and not be propagandized by forces that do not have your best interests in mind or at heart. So Truth Over Comfort, that is your useful resource for today. All right, moving on. So we got a little section now which is more focused on free speech. What is free speech? Do we have it? How can we get more of it? Do we even want more of it? Yasha Monk. He's talking about the left is rebranding free speech as right-wing. This is Obama's favorite thinker, and he's explaining how a focus on group identity has fostered the hostilities seen so vividly in the marches for Palestine. So it's pushing the same narrative, and I like the angle a little more in this case, though, because he's talking about how free speech is being painted as right-wing. Like free speech is... It's apolitical, right? Like you can't have a political position. You can't be on the left or the right unless you can talk about it freely and exchange your ideas with other people. But according to this fellow, the left is rebranding it. I like how they use the term rebranding as well, like it's a marketing campaign. Britain is once again roiled by identity politics. The streets are taken over by hundreds of thousands baying, ostensibly, for the rights of Palestinians, although many protesters seem primarily concerned with celebrating Hamas's mass pogrom. Okay, now this is possible. Maybe there are people out there who are heartless and cruel and callous and think that what happened on October the 7th was a good thing. If that is you, or if you're out there and this is what you think, then I think you're an idiot. I do think you're an absolute moron to celebrate the murder and the torture and the kidnapping and all these traumatic things, anyone doing them to anyone else. They should never be celebrated. But in the case of these organized protests, is it possible? Because think about it, right? Does anyone you know seriously in their heart, in their soul, want people to be murdered, tortured, and kidnapped and traumatized? Does anybody you know actually want that? If the answer is no, which I think is very likely to be no, unless you know some psychos, in which case stop hanging out with them. Psychos, don't hang around with those guys or girls. Most people in the world don't want that, to see that going on, right? So when you then see people who are calling for that, you got to wonder why, what's wrong with them, and what's their motivation. Is it possible that they are, for example, agent provocateurs? Have they been told to get in amongst this peaceful protest and demonstration, stir things up and call for violence and create tension and discord? Do you think that happens? Do you think that has ever happened? Has any peaceful protest demanding change of people getting together in order to effect something positive, has that ever been derailed by having a bunch of people planted in there, paid to go in, stir things up, and be seen so that that movement can be discredited? Has that ever happened? Of course it's happened. All right. Could that be happening now? Of course it could be happening now. The idea that all of the people, most of them there, are celebrating a pogrom and they're only ostensibly there for the rights of Palestinians who, as we've seen, are being they're really going through it right now. It's horrific what they're going through. And look at the numbers of death on each side. It's just, it's not an eye for an eye, is it? It's like, multiple hundreds of eyes for an eye. And then he's going on about the woke left again, and he's wondering how the left are not defending the Jews, like the political class who are running the nation state of Israel are representative of all Jews everywhere, and it's a deliberate confusion of terms. Like, if you do not support the government of Israel, that means you hate all Jews everywhere and you want to see them all wiped off the face of the earth and murdered, right? That is I don't think is it a non sequitur? I'm not so good with my logical fallacies, but it's definitely a logical fallacy of some description. So this is Yasha Monk. He's a professor of political science at Johns Hopkins University. I highlighted that because I wanted to say, look into the history of that university. Who funded that? Who set that up? What else have they been involved in? Is it good things? Is it honest, decent, transparent things that have benefited the world and make things better for everyone? Well, do a bit of research and find out. See what you think. Get back to me. So there was a focus on group identity instead of values, which has fostered tribal hostilities and gave the green light to authoritarianism and persistent pessimism. I think he's right here. I think group identity is not so useful and values is actually more useful. Now, this is not to say that we need to get rid of all groups and smush everybody together, and so we all become a kind of beige nothing. I think a distinct culture, because there's different places in the world and different places require different ways of living, different habits and traditions and customs and knowledge in order to find food and grow food and interact and survive the environment, And so you're going to have a different culture if you live in the desert than if you live in Alaska, for example, or the jungle or Scotland. So there is a need for culture and tradition based on where you live. And that knowledge being preserved, how to grow food, how to survive the weather. This should be what our culture and identity is built around, not get rid of all group identities and distinct group identities and smush everybody together. I think that's a stupid idea. Logically say, let's burn it up. So again, he's pushing this idea that, like, well, if you think that we've never made any progress, then we got to burn everything down, and that's the woke left. So he's doing the same thing. He's pushing the same narrative. And then we just hear like massive, arduous amount of details about his past and his upbringing, persecution, obviously. And he's based in Washington. This guy is single, and his book is dedicated to his mother. I just highlighted that because I thought he needs to get married, right? He needs to like get married and have a child and grow up and not be writing books complaining about persecution when you yourself have no skin in the game, and you're just shaping and molding the minds of young people when you yourself are not taking part in what needs to be done, which is stable, moral family units, having children, raising them to be good people, hardworking people. It just stood out to me, the fact that he's single and dedicating his book to his mum. And, I love mothers. I love mums everywhere, and I support them, and I have lots of love in my heart. I have the best mum in the world myself. Sorry to everyone else, but it's just a fact. And you can see my first stream for more about mothers and what I think about what's happening to this most illustrious and respected and treasured, or should be treasured, role, the mother. But so I'm glad that, it's nice that he's dedicated to his mother, but he just sounds like a bit of a mummy's boy, Get married, dude, have some children, and it'll give you some perspective. Says me, I don't even have children yet, but I am married, so, watch this space. And so, what else? He's talking about the book. He goes back and forward. So what about the disturbing behavior on show at the pro-Palestinian march? Disturbing behavior. How dare these people call for a ceasefire, call for the end of indiscriminate murder of people on both sides? How dare they? This is disturbing. They want these two groups to stop murdering each other. Oh, sends shivers down my spine just to think of that. Okay, he says later, when it comes to Israel, the history of Israel is a bit complicated. There was a time in which Israel was a left-wing cause, and right-wingers were more skeptical of the creation of Israel. And then, with the American support for Israel, that started to shift. But I do think that the formerly humanistic left would have been able to condemn Hamas attack on Israeli civilians. So again, this word condemn keeps popping back up. And it's complicated. Yeah, he's right. It is complicated. It's incredibly complicated. I've got a stack of books over there that go into this. And, there's no good. It's not a fight between good and evil, It's incredibly nuanced and complex. And there's all sorts of players involved, all sorts of shenanigans going on that are clandestine, there's betrayal, there is capitalism, there's monopoly capitalism. That's the phrase I was looking for. There's betrayal. There is all sorts of people, double agents, triple agents. The book, The Secret War Against the Jews by John Loftus is where I've been learning about a lot of this, and I really heartily and strongly recommend that book for anybody out there who wants to at least get started on learning about these issues. More recently, I got delivered this one, which I can just flash up on the camera for you momentarily. This is Prophets of War, Inside the Secret U.S.-Israeli Arms Network by Ari Ben Manash. As you can probably tell from the name, written by a Jew. And there's a lot of shenanigans going on with this country and other countries. And there's a lot of books written on it, but they're not well known, and most people don't read them, which is why most people have no idea what they're talking about, and they just wade in to the red team, blue team discussion. So what is he talking about? So he's talking about the left and the right. He's saying the lefty inclinations of students is fairly universal. That's right, actually. Like, university professors such as this guy tend to be overwhelmingly left-leaning and progressive. And that's pretty established and non-controversial. You can look into that and check it out yourself. But what does that mean? Well, it means our young people are getting indoctrinated with a very specific worldview and set of values and beliefs about what to do in the world. And this is something we talked about on this live stream before. What's left of right-wing politics is sort of uninspiring and often quite sensible. Yeah. So, the extreme, the hard left and the far right, and I don't know why it's hard and left and far right, and why is it not far left, far right? Maybe it's not hard left, hard right, because I think they need to give two different adjectives for the far left and the hard right in order to make them seem like different things, but they're not. They're the same. If you go far enough left and you go far enough right, you'll end up in exactly the same place, which is authoritarianism, which is top-down control, mass murder, and genocide. So it's very important to have a balance, take the best of both, right? And in the case of the right-leaning side of things, monogamous relationships and marriage and stability and hard work and a stable home life and going to bed early and eating good food and not being porn addicted, drug taking hippie from the 60s is generally a little more preferred for the right-wing people. They like a bit of sort of sensible approach to life. And, that is often what prevails, sensible heads, hopefully. People who are thinking towards the future, people who are putting off the present indulgence to prepare for the future, putting a bit of money aside, taking care of their health, working hard to build up some sort of business or get ahead in a company or something like that, and not giving in to the temptation to just be, a sort of dependent, useless person who doesn't contribute anything. This is kind of the right-wing values. But it is kind of boring, and it's uninspiring in many ways to many people. So he's saying that he thinks there's a general intellectual movement which is responding to an ideological vacuum. And this is being filled by this terrible left Islamic group, I think. So, but one of the things that he ends on, which I thought was a really good point, was he says that in Britain, in order to survive and thrive, you need to acquire a sense of humor. And so he says he hopes that Britain helped him overcome his Germanic humor. In the current climate, humor is even harder to come by and all the more important. This is why we like to watch comedy shows such as Grand Theft World. So if you don't know what Grand Theft World is, type it into a search engine, like everyone else does. Sheesh. It's not anti-free speech to restrict demonstrations. We do need to protect freedom of expression, but these aggressive protests aren't civilized dissent. So again, condemning the protesters. It's not civilized to call for the halting of murder. It's not civilized. There isn't really a consensus across society on how we handle free speech. It's also true that some kinds of words are policed more rigorously than others. We've talked about this on this show as well, about a man last week who left himself unmuted, and then he talked to his friend he had a lewd and disgusting conversation about pornography, and it was broadcast to his students, and then he was arrested, had 2 houses searched, had his electronic devices searched, and charged with a fine, given a fine of £1,300, because he had a conversation on a phone that was kind of, it was just rude, just some nasty, rude stuff, but you're not allowed to be nasty and rude these days on a private conversation. That's the message. So there isn't a consensus, so we need a consensus. And what does this guy advocate we should do? Well, he says, one thing he says, mass marches rarely change anything and always bring the risk of disorder and intimidation well beyond the notional roots. So he's calling for, let's get rid of mass marches. This is what I've said as well, is that the problem is that people already don't get together enough, right? They're all at home working, not all, but many of us. So we're at home, we're working from home, we're on Zoom, we're looking at videos, and we're not getting together in person. When I went on the lockdown marches a while back, the energy was absolutely electric. It was invigorating. The vibe was so good. People banging drums, singing. It was so rejuvenating to be part of that. And when I went over to London for one, and I was trying to catch up with the march and struggling to find it, which you think wouldn't be a problem, right? Tens of thousands of people. But and I was a bit nervous, and I was kind of anxious. I'm like, oh God, what's going to happen? Am I going to get arrested? Are we going to get beaten by the police and thrown into the back of vans, which does happen and has happened and was happening at that time. But as soon as I saw the column of people marching down the street, and as soon as I got amongst them, all that anxiety faded away and I felt good. And then I marched, I just did a whole loop for maybe 2 or 3 hours with a friend of mine. And it was just like to have all those hearts in one place beating. All the atmosphere was electric, and there was no violence, there was no rudeness, there was people handing out information, there was people talking, getting to know each other. This is what they want to stop, right? This is what they're trying to get rid of, and the way they get rid of it is by discrediting it and making it look bad, right? Every time these protests happen, it's all about anti-Semitism and hate, and it's anti-Western and anti-modernity, and they rip down statues and they kick in the shop front windows, and they assault the police, and we need to stop them from happening, and we need to stop people getting together in large groups. That's what it's all about. It's about getting rid of that, and that's what this moron in this article is arguing. I shouldn't call him a moron. He's probably a very accomplished and intellectually intelligent man, but mass marches rarely change anything. Okay. However, he does say free speech is crucial for sustaining a free society. We should be protecting the right to express an opinion much more robustly than we currently do, as long as it is in a normal, civilized debating context. Oh yeah, there we go. Politics, the media, online, universities, and so on. Now, so we got to keep free speech. And we need to protect the right to express an opinion more robustly than we do, as long as it's in a normal civilized debating context. And to give examples of normal civilized debating context, he uses online, the media, universities, and politics. Like that. I don't know. That just blew my mind. It really did. None of those places are normal civilized debating contexts. Maybe they are in some cases occasionally, but for the most part, online, and I mean the media, it's a one-way thing, isn't it? You're just bombarded by the mainstream message that the billionaires want you to have. Politics, I've seen those politicians going at it, and they're just cheering each other on and booing each other, and it's just like a childish primary school effort. Universities just full of indoctrinated young people, don't know their arse from their elbow, don't know how to, for the most part, not all, I shouldn't broad brush, but they're just more interested in drinking and having sex. Let's be honest, that's what they do. It's extended adolescence now these days. That's all it is. It's to keep you childish for longer. That's why university exists, and to get you into debt, and to make you think, oh, debt is fine to be in debt. And then when you're in debt, you're under control. And online, I don't even need to tell you how online is not normal civilized or debating a good place for debate, because it's just full of bots and trolls and people who say things they would never say to each other's face. Goodness me. An hour and 20 minutes. So we need to work on genuine cross-party, society-wide consensus about the real boundaries, and then we should put this into a free speech act and police it properly. So again, free speech is crucial. We need to have free speech, and the best way to do that is to police it and control it. All right, that makes sense. Demonstrations. So there's a bit here he's talking about demonstrations. Demonstrations are different. There can't be an unqualified right to demonstrate repeatedly en masse if that demonstration causes disruption or threat. Or indeed, as this coming weekend, if the only reason it doesn't cause such disruption is that the police are not properly enforcing the law. So again, he's trying to get rid of demonstrations. I think, my opinion, that Just Stop Oil are part of this. They are there to discredit demonstrators, to make people call for more restrictions and controls and rules and laws around the gathering of groups of people, and because and again, I think they're being put up to it. I think they're being paid and told to cause as much chaos and disruption as possible so that these kind of laws can get pushed through unchallenged, and people do not realize what it is that they're giving up and what it is they're losing until it's too late, until the authoritarian, the silk glove comes off the authoritarian iron fist, and then suddenly it's like, oh my goodness, we can't even get together in groups larger than 4 people, and we have no recourse to overturn this thing. And that's what we talked about in the last video as well. The AI, Nick Bostrom, futurist, transhumanist, maniac, saying that AI, we need to keep developing it, even though there's a chance it could completely wipe out the human race, and secondly, put the human race into under the grips of an authoritarian regime that is impossible to overthrow or fight back against. But despite those 2 risks, we definitely need to keep developing AI. Yeah, we do. Just unbelievable. Okay, we gotta empower the police to do to enforce restrictions and do their job properly, right? So, what does that sound like? We need more police with better weapons, more technology, and we need to give them more cameras and more guns and more sticks and things to bash people with and chemically assault people with, because they got to stop people getting together in groups. Our final problem is a broader one. My belief is that liberal enlightenment values such as personal freedom and free speech are fragile and can only be sustained by a particular kind of society, one with a high degree of social cohesion, a broad consensus on beliefs and values, and significant levels of trust in fellow citizens, system of government, and nation. I agree with all that, actually. I don't know if liberal enlightenment values, I don't know if enlightenment values are the best ones, but I do think personal freedom, free speech need to be sustained, and we need a high trust society. We need a highly moral society, and you only get that when people kind of agree on beliefs and values, which means there needs to be debate and discussion to iron things out and win the hearts and minds over to whatever is the best, most high resolution and detailed version of truth, right? So it must be right, if we wish, to act to shore up that kind of society, including by reducing migration or controlling demonstrations. Okay, so again, throwing 2 things together. Reducing migration, I think most people can agree that would not be a bad thing. And control the demonstrations. And make sure that people can't get together to voice their opinion en masse. And feel that energy and that love and that vibe and that strength and that unity of purpose, and we need to make sure people can't have that. We need to keep them divided and separated and sitting at home and arguing online. But we can reduce migration. So you see how they do it, right? They throw a little bit of good thing that's reasonable, that makes sense, and then something, it's a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. And he says, yes, it is a paradox that sometimes only controls can help us preserve freedom, but it's no less true for that. Paradox. I don't know what your opinion is about paradoxes. Do they exist? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Send me a comment underneath. It's not my feeling is, there's no contradictions in nature. I think it's Crow 777 who says that very often, and that's kind of where I'm at. So a paradox seems to me like something that maybe it is not true, not real. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. Next bit is back to Spiked, and hate speech is free speech. So off the back of this previous article where he's talking about we need to control demonstrations, but that's not free speech. This is a different perspective. This is Tom Slater on why we cannot fight bigotry with censorship. And I got the video ready here, and I'm hoping that when I play this, you can hear it. So let's check.
Tom, what are the limits of free speech, do you think?
Well, I think this is a really important question, and thanks for asking me to come and talk about it, just because I do feel like we've been playing the free speech debate kind of on easy mode for the last couple of years, just because of how crazy things have got. We're in the often quite comfortable position of only having to defend people who actually have relatively respectable opinions. Such is the age that we live in. The great heresy is to suggest that there are 2 biological sexes. Such is the age that we live in. You have...
I didn't quite follow that when I've listened to it a few times now, and he's saying we're very lucky that mostly we only have to defend things that are reasonable, such as claiming there are 2 biological sexes. But he's right, it is a heresy. The people who rail and complain and kick up a stink about that claim are, it's a belief. It's like they are defending it or attacking it, I should say, with a kind of religious extremist fervor that that is kind of strange.
University.
Not based on logic and reasoning and evidence is my point, and definitely not based on chromosomes.
Academics, people like Neil Thin at the University of Edinburgh, who got suspended for opposing racially segregated university events, for opposing them. And of course, we live in an age in which to criticise and to mock gods and prophets, or if we're being honest, one specific god and one specific prophet, is punching down and can get you menaced for doing that, even though, as my friend Andrew Doyle likes to say, you really can't punch much higher than heaven. But this is such an important issue, is that we need to really get down to brass tacks, because of the fact that our commitment to freedom of speech is really based on our willingness to uphold it in all circumstances. And for me, therefore, freedom of speech is, in essence, has no limits. I think we need the test for freedom of speech is very much...
Somebody in there was trying to get the applause going, but it didn't quite catch on. There's people sitting there going, I'm not quite sure about that. Does free speech have limits? Should you be able to make whatever sounds you want with your mouth at any time? My view on it is, I don't know. But when you boil it down, as I like to do, speech is mouth sounds. And when you make mouth sounds, it causes people to react. But are those reactions which occur a result of the mouth sounds? Or are those reactions which occur a result of the free will of the human being who is reacting? Now, I've been in arguments, I've been in raised voice type situations, and I hate it. I hate confrontation, I hate conflict. I like peace, I like people to get on, I like people to be respectful and kind to each other. What I've been trying to do and practice, and what I've been trying to argue with people as well, is that when you react to something, you're reacting to a stimulus, and you have the power to change the way you react, to react differently. So you should be able to sit there and listen to the most horrible, hateful, spiteful, evil mouth sounds that people could possibly make, and realize that all that's actually happening is mouth sounds, right? If somebody came up to you and in a language you couldn't understand said hateful, vile, derogative, bigoted, just violent, crazy stuff, you would just sort of sit there nonplussed. You might be like, oh, he looks a bit aggressive, or she looks a bit aggressive, but you wouldn't react. You wouldn't say, you can't say that. You wouldn't attempt to control it or prevent it or stop it, because it's just mouth sounds. Yeah. So, I'm kind of leaning more towards the side of people need to get themselves and their reactions under control, and not blame the mouth sounds that other people make for, X, Y, and Z. So that's kind of where I'm at with it, but I'm happy to have other inputs, and please send me a message or put some comments underneath.
One about sticking up for those that we most virulently hate. I think Noam Chomsky, who I doubt will be quoted favourably for the rest of this conference here today, put it very well, which is that freedom of speech is the freedom for those we despise. And I really think that is the test.
I do think that's a good point.
And therefore, with that in mind, I think it's important that whilst we might be accustomed to sticking up for respectable people, we need to really steel ourselves for sticking up for the deeply unrespectable people, for people whose views we hate, for people who hate us in return. And I think what that means is making clear that when we talk about freedom of speech having limits, the only limits we're talking about is when speech ceases to be speech and becomes something else. So when you...
So what does that even mean? So when it ceases to be speech and it becomes something else. So I guess that's like... That's not speech, is it? That's become something else now. Strange mouth sounds. Let him carry on.
Incite violence, when you defraud someone, when you lie on a tax return, those are not...
Oh, okay.
Speech crime.
Yeah, this is kind of coming into the world of morals now, isn't it? Moral behavior, what's right and wrong. Is it right or wrong to lie? Is it right or wrong to, call for violence and violent action and these kind of things.
Those are crimes that involve speech, and I think that's something that we should make abundantly clear, and any attempt to encroach upon freedom of speech beyond that is something that we really shouldn't tolerate. And I think the urgency of this is really important, first of all because, and I'm sure many of you will have heard this point before, it's been articulated by many brilliant free speech defenders over history. If you do not guard even your enemy from censorship, you create a mechanism that will eventually reach you. That's
yeah, on the point, on the money. You know, people who call for certain words to be said can or can't say that. You have to or have not to say that, this or that. It's going to come back and be used against you.
It's been said time again. Ira Glasser, former head of the American Civil Liberties Union, a great hero of mine, had a great analogy for it. He said speech restrictions are like poison gas. They seem like a great idea when you've got your enemy in your sights, but then the wind changes direction. And I think that's something we've got to bear completely in mind. But I think there's a secondary reason why it's so important today, which is that the people that we're up against don't just want to introduce kind of neat, specific restrictions, caveats, carve-outs for freedom of speech. They're rubbishing the idea in total. So if we talk about Islamists, if we're talking about extreme identitarians...
Ooh, Islamists, they're back.
They don't just think that freedom of speech has gone a bit too far and it needs to be hemmed in. They reject the concept entirely. They see it as a kind of Western colonialist myth, that it's just there to amplify the voices of the oppressors and put the boot on the neck of the oppressed, effectively.
Free speech is there to amplify the voice of the oppressors. Does anyone really think that? Maybe. That's wild, man. Like, doesn't make any sense.
So I think every time that we concede the principle, we fuel their narrative, which is that when people stick up for freedom of speech, they don't really mean it. It's basically just a way of protecting them and their friends and people who look like them. So I think there's a doubly important reason why we need to stick up for freedom of speech today. For me, the main battleground, therefore, is that we really need to make abundantly clear and be unabashed in saying that hate speech is free speech. As difficult as that is to swallow sometimes, that sticking up for free speech means sticking up for the genuinely extreme, offensive, hateful, and that it is a profound moral error to think that you can challenge bigotry through censorship. I think that's something that we've got to make clear all the more these days. And with the recognition that this is about our ability to be able to take, say, the disgusting antisemitism that we've seen spilling out onto Britain's streets in recent weeks.
Had to, didn't he? Just have to. You just got to push it out. It is spiked. It is spiked after all. Yeah, but he makes some good points, but at the same time, he has to squeeze in the current narrative and push this narrative, which, you know, he needs a job. He's got to pay the bills.
Weeks after the pogrom in Israel, and say, we want to know who those people are. We want to know what they think, precisely so we can challenge them. And that's really important. So
now he's got a round of applause. Excellent. Well done. Well done, Tom Slater. You got your round of applause in the end. All you had to do was push the current narrative. Easy peasy. All right. We are here. We made it. We're at the end. This is the final thing that I wanted to bring to you today. Oh my God, an hour and 37 minutes. I apologize for the length of this. I hope it's not unnecessarily long. If it is too long and you think you prefer shorter videos, leave me a comment. You know, other things you can do, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends and family if you think there's any value or any perspective here. I'm trying to give a voice and trying to demonstrate to people that these things can be laughed at and mocked and identified for what they are, and you don't have to be drawn into the emotional, divisive propaganda and two-party manipulation. It's all illusory. You can be kind. You can have love in your heart for everybody, even if you disagree with them and the stupid things that they say. But you really want to position yourself as the voice of kind of logic and reason and rationality and clear-headedness, someone who's optimistic, someone who is not manipulated, someone who does not just regurgitate the headlines and the talking points that are pushed. You know, if anything, if we learned nothing today, what we did learn is that these MSM outlets push an agenda. They push a narrative, and it's coordinated from somewhere else. So we looked at 4 examples today, and kind of 5 spiked. That last video there was spiked. So let's say 4. We looked at 4 examples today of publications pushing out exactly the same narrative on the same day. And these are different publications, right? But this is how it works. So you got people out there read all these different things. Is anyone reading all of them? Yeah, me. But I mean, the narrative comes from somewhere else, and they are told to push that narrative, and then they get their writers to put their own, spin on it, and they do it in their own little flavor. But the narrative is the same. And we proved, and we showed today using Wikipedia, that there's more to that narrative than these publications are letting on and putting out there. And we also saw how they mix a bit of good, sensible, logical analysis and a bit of truth with a load of bullshit. And that's how they get it in. That's how they it's a shit sandwich, There's a nice bit of delicious sourdough bread, some organic butter, and then a piece of shit, and then a nice piece of organic bread and some butter on the other side, and you think, oh, that sandwich looks delicious. Got a bit of Nutella in the middle there. Nope, it's not Nutella. But the bread's good, and the butter's good, and it's high quality, and it's nutritious, and it'd be good to have that in you and take it on board. But the shit, leave that bit out. That's not Nutella. It's shit. So, finally, to round off the end of this episode, which has gone on way longer than I expected it to. I clearly love talking too much. But we can blame my granny. She rang me up halfway through. But God bless her. God love her. I'm going to go pick her up soon and see her later today, and that's going to be wonderful. She's been on holiday. What I'm going to do for the end of this episode is now a reading of The Hate Machine by CJ Hopkins. This is off guardian.co.uk, a really great website that I would like people to go and read. It's not pushing the message. It's certainly more nuanced analysis that is a big picture stuff, connecting the dots in a way that uses evidence and logic. But they also have writers on there who are a little more, I want to say, kind of like Lionel Shriver. They're writers, they're authors, they're artists. They're not just analysts and geopolitical technocracy, investigative journalist type people. And CJ Hopkins is one of them. He's an author. He's got a lot of books out. He's been a stalwart voice of reason and rationality over the last 3 years. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's going through some court proceedings at the minute. He's been charged of hate crime in Germany for putting a swastika on the front of his book, I think. And this is his article, The Hate Machine, which I'm going to read in its entirety because the topic of today's stream is hate. And what is hate? And is hate speech free speech? And what is free speech? And where does hate come from? And all these kind of things that we've looked at today. And I think this is a beautiful way, a fantastic way, a well-written way to end and round things off. So this is from November the 22nd, 2003, The Hate Machine by CJ Hopkins. I think something's wrong with my hate machine. I've got it turned up to 10, but I'm still not feeling it. The hate, the murderous, self-righteous hate, the mindlessly fanatical hate. I set the dial to Palestinians, nothing. No reaction whatsoever. So I set it to Israelis, again, nothing. I just can't seem to get my hate up. It's embarrassing. Maybe there's some pills that would help. But seriously, this is interfering with both my social and professional life. I need to get my hate up somehow. I've tried everything I could possibly think of. I tried reading nothing but news about Israel's ongoing liquidation of Gaza. I stared at pictures of dead and horribly mutilated Palestinian children, thousands of them killed, torn to pieces, residential neighborhoods reduced to rubble, whole families crushed under tons of concrete. I told myself over and over that they were terrorists, or the children of terrorists, or that they had voted for terrorists, or they were antisemites, human animals, the children of darkness. It didn't work. I tried reading nothing but news about the Hamas attack on October 7, the murder of families, the wanton slaughter. I started at the pictures of the blood-smeared bedrooms, the footage of the executions. I read the messages that people sent to their loved ones before they were shot to death. I told myself over and over that they were fascists, occupiers, colonizers, Zionazis. I told myself that they deserved what they got. Nothing. No arousal whatsoever. I checked the connections on my hate machine. They all seemed fine. So I tried rebooting it twice. Nope. Didn't work either. So finally, I called the hate corporation, but I couldn't get through to a hate representative because of an unusually high volume of callers. So apparently I'm not the only one with this dysfunction. Well, that was kind of reassuring because, frankly, I've been feeling so left out. All the really cool people are grooving on hate. Seriously, check the internet. It's like 24-hour Roman orgy of hate. And I'm unable to participate. I'm sorry for whining. It's unseemly, I know. And I'm fairly sure my inability to achieve and maintain a satisfactory tumescence or protuberance of hate is not my hate machine's fault. I have the latest model with all the new features. And other people's hate machines are working just fine. How's yours doing? Are you feeling the hate? Are those you hate the embodiment of evil? They are liars, aren't they? Liars and murderers, genociders, Nazis, subhuman scum. Everything they say is a lie. Everything they do and are is wicked. They cannot help it. They were born that way. They need to be wiped off the face of the earth. They need to be eradicated, don't they? They're never going to change their ways. Making peace with them is not an option. It's us or them. They, the others, and all their issue need to be defeated, vanquished, erased, and exterminated and eradicated. This is no time for compassion or pity. They, the others, have no morals or ethics or simple human empathy, so we can't afford to have any either. None of them are innocent. None of them are civilians. All of them, men, women, and children, are soldiers of the army of evil. They're murderers, so we have to be murderers. They're liars, so we need to become liars. Truth is for children. This is war. We need to kill and kill and kill and celebrate killing and swim in their blood and defile their corpses. The others are enemies. Well, what do you know? It appears my hate machine is functioning properly after all. Yes. Wow. That feels so much better. I guess I just needed to relax, let go, stop thinking so much about what's right and wrong, and let my hate do what it wants. Seriously. I'm not kidding, folks. I haven't had a hate on like this for years. I'm ready to join that Roman orgy of hatred. All I need to do now is pick a side.